So it was a Limerick 11 points, Cork 116. I'm delighted to be joined here by Matthew Hurley from the GAA Statsman Podcast, who's here to review this game alongside myself. In the end, it was an 8-point victory in the end for Cork, relatively comfortable, although Limerick did give you a bit of worry here and there in the first half. But in the end, comfortable enough from the Rebels. And I'd imagine as a Cork fan yourself, you're happy enough with that?
Absolutely delighted, Aaron. It was an 8-point victory. It was a brilliant victory and great to be back in the stadium as well. I think this was my first game since, I think it was March 2020. So it was absolutely just brilliant to be back in the stadium. Great to have fans there. The Limerick fans were outstanding today. They drove on their team very well. And look, from a Cork point of view, it was job done, really. Our aim is to try and beat Kerry for the second time in 2 years. But look, as unlikely as it might seem, we live and dream, and this is one step towards us. We're in the Munster final now. Limerick were a tough side today. They were tough not to crack. They were very aggressive in the tackle towards us. Might have been lacking quality at times, but we put them away, and that was the main thing, with some brilliant performances by our younger players. John O'Rourke with 1-3 was outstanding today. Brian Hurley did his bit. So, look, we march on to the Munster final now against Kerry, and it was a decent performance that it got us over the line today.
Yeah. And I suppose would that be only like one of the main concerns maybe is that in the first half there did seem to be a lot of wides and shots dropping short. Like even Luke Connolly was substituted like late in the second half. He didn't score in the game, missed all of his frees that he was on. Like would that be the concern? Because I'd imagine obviously going up against Kerry that you'd need to be clinical. You need to be, you'd have to have your shooting boots on in that game if you are to stand any chance.
Absolutely, and even though I was saying to a few people at the end of the game, that performance, look, it was good enough to beat Limerick, but it won't be good enough to beat Kerry. It's as simple as that. Kerry are All-Ireland's contenders for a reason. Look, I just think we, as you say, we dropped a few short, we had a few wides, and I thought we were a bit ponderous today. I thought our build-up play was very slow, which against Kerry, I think we wouldn't get away with it. Against a Division 3 side like Limerick, we got away with it today. Like, we were so slow. Like, even when we got the ball, I was just like, run at this Limerick defence, test them out, and we just hand passed the ball, kicked it across the pitch. It was slow and ponderous. That's one negative I take out today, all right, and a few shots missed, even though we had over 70% conversion rate today compared. Like, Limerick's shot conversion rate was worse in my opinion. But look, it was good enough to beat Limerick today, but as you say, it will not be good enough against Kerry or even if we get to the All-Ireland semi-final against an Ulster side. This is being hopeful now against the Donegal or Tyrone. That definitely won't be good enough. So look, there's things to improve on the training ground. We move on to Kerry, but then again, it will not be good enough to beat Kerry in the Munster final without a doubt.
Yeah, 100%. Like, and because even like I suppose Sean Porter as well, like since he's come back into the team, obviously he was missing in the Munster final last year. Like I thought he was really impressive, hit 2 points, and Jack O'Rourke, like you said, or John O'Rourke, I should say, with 1-3 was fantastic. Got that goal early on, and Brian Hurley seems to be a brilliant addition back into the team as well. Like obviously in the Westmeath game when he came off the bench, he was fantastic. Hit 6 points. In this game as well. Like I suppose for the manager, obviously, like he does seem to have more or less, he seems to know more now kind of his starting 6 forwards, whereas I suppose at the start of the league there was a lot of chopping and changing between Cathal O'Mahony and a few others. So I suppose there does seem to be a bit more consistency within those forwards at the moment. He seems to know which players he's going to play, Ronan McCarthy.
He does to an extent, yeah. Like Rory Dean is settling in at centre forward. Dan Deneen, I know he didn't score today, but he was making good runs. Hurley, as you say, scored 6 points. He did his job. He scored a lot of frees. Luke Connolly was a bit off it now today, but hopefully we'll be on it against Kerry. John O'Rourke was outstanding, obviously 1-3. So he kind of does have his 6 starting forwards in a way, but they're kind of held the fact Colin Manny's injured now. It's a huge loss for us, but it's more certain now that Luke Connolly and all them will be starting next. But the thing is, Mark Collins came on. He reassured the whole thing coming onto the pitch in the last 10 minutes. Something we need is a bit of experience to see out the game. And he could even start against Kerry. I think, look, you can't go wrong with experience. I know Dan Deneen is performing well at the moment. Luke Connolly, obviously, Brian Hurley. He was there for years. He's been there, I think, since 2011. He knows how to get the job done latter stages of the championship. He's been in an All-Ireland semi-final against Donegal as well as that, and he's been our main player for years. So maybe there's a place for him in the team. And look, as much younger players as we have, the likes of Brian Hart, Dan Deneen, all them, but we need that experience. The likes of Mark Collins, Ian Maguire drove us on again today. Brian Hurley did his bit, as I said. So, look, we need experienced heads against Kerry. That's why I'd probably start Mark Collins at half forward, probably push Brian Hart into midfield, because when he came on into midfield against Limerick, when Paul Walsh went off, the first thing he did, he caught a high ball from Limerick kickouts, and that set us on our way to a comprehensive victory in many ways. So I'd probably drop Brian Hart to midfield the next day, probably start Mark Collins. But other than that, look, I'll start the other 5 forwards, definitely. I think they'll definitely put their hands up to start against Kerry the next day.
Absolutely, yeah. Like, and I suppose from a Limerick point of view, were you surprised even maybe in the first half and even in the second half at different points where they didn't seem quite to be at the same level that they played against Waterford and even in the league? And I don't know whether it was maybe the pressure of the fact that they were playing Cork, and because even in the first half, they did seem like there was opportunities there. I thought they were doing a brilliant job defensively, like the likes of Ian Corbett and Gordon Brown and, you know, Robbie Childs as well. Like, we're doing fantastic on someone like turning the ball over, and they were winning a lot of ball as well from their own kickouts. Like, just seems to be going forward with the likes of Hugh Burke, although he hit 5 points, like the majority of them were from place balls. For the likes of Danny Neville and even Killian Fahy as well, like probably just not up to the same level as what they produced when they were in Division 3. And I suppose maybe they were coming up against a better opposition.
They were in a way, yeah, but I think they definitely lost a key component to their team in the first 3 minutes. Donal O'Sullivan getting a huge belt after the John O'Rourke goal. That was a huge loss to them, and they lost a lot of kickouts more than they wouldn't have liked, really. They lost a few of them, like Brian Hart and Ian Maguire were sweeping them up in midfield. So that was a huge loss to them, losing Donal O'Sullivan that early. But as I said earlier on, their aggression was absolutely outstanding. The fans got behind them. But again, their shooting let them down dearly today. I think their conversion rate was something under 50%, which is, it's not good enough really at this level, and kind of factors. But they brought the aggression today, and look, they frightened Cork within the first 2 minutes, but I think the goal from John O'Rourke settled the team down a small bit, but then they came into us towards the end of the half with their aggression once again. But then again, 1 point from playing the first half it's certainly not good enough at this level, and they were left to pay for it in the end. Look, I think they'll have a good year next year. I think they have a good platform to go up to Division 2 next year. Look at Division 3, Tip and Cavan are now in Division 4. So I think they have a good chance of going up next year. I think they would have excelled in the qualifiers if there was this year, and obviously that's a debate for another day. But look, they acquitted themselves well aggression-wise, but then again, their quality on the ball at times and their shooting today was just not good enough to beat Cork, and they left to rue those opportunities, and that's something Billy Lee and his side need to improve on for next season. But the signs are there. They have good, strong players like Josh Ryan coming in. I thought was a brilliant player to come on. Geez, he looked like one of the Limerick hurlers, in all honesty. They're number 26. So there's good players there in Limerick. They have a good backroom team, good management team, and the future's bright for them. But today they just came up short, and their shooting let them down badly.
Absolutely, yeah. Like, and like what you were saying earlier, most likely anyway, we'd imagine it's Kerry next, like with all due respect to Tipperary, like depending on how that game goes. But like, what would you measure as a success for Cork going into that game? Would it be to be competitive against Kerry, like be within 5 to 10 points? Or possibly even you're thinking maybe, like, obviously you turned them over last year. There was a point between these in 2019. So how would you see that game going, I suppose, as early as now?
Look, our objective against Kerry, when I was starting early watching football around 09 to 15 or maybe even 16, 17, was to beat Kerry. That was the main aim and always was. But then when 2018 came, when we went down to Division 3, the aim was just to stay with them as long as we can. Stay with them up until the 60th ability. Look, I know we beat them last year, but I think we performed much better in 2019. The way we attacked them, the way we tested out their defence. Like last year, I think Kerry played into our hands with a defensive system that didn't suit them whatsoever. So, look, the main thing for us, like a thing that we weren't doing today was moving the ball quick. We need to do that against Kerry to beat them, because I think they've dumped the defensive system, and good riddance to it for them. But look, all we could do was just attack that Kerry defence. It's still fragile. I know people will point towards the Tyrone game as probably a turning point for that Kerry defence, but I still think there's a weak point in that centre-back, full-back, the goalkeeper. I still think there's a weak point that someone like Sean Powter or Cian Kiley, who scored 2 points today coming off the bench, could run at that Kerry defence and cause some serious problems. You look at Liam O'Donovan still has to come back, who was one of the most impressive players for Cork in 2019. And if he comes back, gets the ball, Matty Taylor as well from the wing back positions and run at that Kerry defence, or even Rory Dean punting the ball into Brian Hurley like he did in 2019 for Hurley's goal. Look, there's always a chance, but the main aim is close to Kerry as we can. Everything from a loss by 3 points. Above that, everything's a bonus for us. Look, we're a Division 2 side. We have to be realistic. Kerry are All-Ireland contenders. Maybe a miracle's in the air once again, a marquee miracle, but look, I think Kerry have learned their lessons from last year, and I think they'll beat Tipperary tonight. They'll trash them, more or less, and they'll probably beat us in the final as well. But I hope the game is something under 5 points. That'll be a success for us. Anything else is a bonus.
100%, yeah. Well, it'll definitely be interesting to keep an eye on that game. Obviously, when it does come around, or if it does come around, provided Kerry obviously win later tonight. But yeah, look, listen, cheers anyway, Matthew, for coming on. I'll link down your podcast down below as always.
Thank you very much, Aaron. Much appreciated.